Do we know if Dimba is coming?
Dimba did RSVP that he would attend to it, yes, but he doesn't look like he's signed in yet, so we can move forward.
Mary Rollins? And do we know if Mary RSVP'd?
Mary did RSVP, yes, as well.
Ben Breeden?
Here.
Samantha Hassan? Did they RSVP?
Yes, Samantha RSVP'd, yes, as well.
Susan Mosshart?
Here.
Larissa Knupp?
Here.
And Kathy Lynott?
Here.
All right. So, staff
Chair,
review. Oh,
Chair, this is Vicky Dorway. Can I make a comment about attendance and just quickly?
Yes.
Okay, so I ended up opening, originally I opened the Teams for the second meeting. So it's possible that some of the people could be waiting for the other meeting if they're not the same, because I think there were two emails where one is for tomorrow's meeting and one is for today's meeting. So I was actually waiting for the other meeting and I finally was like, okay, people should be on by now. And then I realized, oh, this is for the second meeting. So I don't know if there's a way to, I don't know, let people know that this is the correct link for this meeting.
Well, what we can do is, Becky, if you're able to sign out real quick and then sign into that one and see if anybody's on that one. Yeah, Becky's gonna hop off real quick and then go check that other meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Bring in our committee members if they're in there.
Okay, so. Okay.
And I think we'll probably just wait right here on the agenda.
Okay.
Just to give some extra time for those that haven't joined but did RSVP to join us, and for Becky to go there and come back.
So I do want to provide a quick update. It does look like we have one committee member who is trying to hop on that's having some issues. So we're gonna just give it one more quick second and see if they're able to join us. Thank you so much for everybody being patient. You all look great. Thank you. Let's see. So Charles, it looks like we have Becky joined us again. Hopefully our other committee members able to hop on soon. But it does also appear that we have a lot of people that are listening to us over the public line. So we may want to just continue with the meeting.
Yeah, I'll keep us moving.
Mary was in the other meeting, so she should be hopping on.
And thanks for checking on that, Becky. So, all right, I'll move us on to overview of committee procedures. So I will just call on each committee member during discussion and during voting. In addition to that, please keep your questions until after each presentation. We want to avoid getting into a discussion about stuff that might later be answered later on in the presentation, as well as just managing meetings over Teams and over the internet is hard to do with being able to call on people and whatnot. So I think that we are just going to go with a kind of a roll call style for each of the questions, similar to what we did last time.
So Charles, it looks like Mary has joined us.
Mary, can you hear us?
It looks as though she's muted, but it does look and appear like she is here. Okay.
All right. Mary? Okay. While that gets sorted out, Kembra, would you like to move us on to the introduction of CARES funding?
Yes. So I just want to say real quick that this is going to be a brief summary of what was addressed at the prior hearing. This is really so that we're all aware again of what it is that we're evaluating and what was set forward from the CARES program. Again, this is all money that's under the Community Development Block Grant program from HUD. These dollars were provided from HUD to directly respond to COVID-19 impact. And on the April 23rd meeting that the Citizen Advisory Committee held, they were determined at that time to want to prioritize the CARES funding for access to food and food security, housing security, looking at serving agencies that were working with communities of color, immigrant and non-English speaking persons, as well as agencies with programs or partnerships that addressed equity. In particular with that, we were kind of looking for partnerships that were already in place. Really the importance is to utilize the funds as soon as possible and to get them out into the committee or out into the community to be able to be used for relief. This did not preclude anybody from being able to apply for these dollars. Of course, we understood that these were priorities that were established through a very brief community survey that was sent out. However, we did want to make sure that these agencies that did apply for these priorities were given first consideration when looking at funding allocations. Additional priorities that we needed to determine were that in compliance with HUD. So of course the programs and services needed to benefit low to moderate income individuals. HUD sets the thresholds for what those are. It must also directly benefit, again, persons impacted by COVID-19, and it must have also been an eligible activity under the federal code for what HUD determines as eligible activities under the CDBG program. And so in addition to that, when evaluating the applications, I do have to say that we had some absolutely fabulous applications that came through. It is very clear that there is a lot of very good work that's happening in the community right now in response to COVID-19. And so that just made looking at all this a little bit harder. So we need to be very critical about how we applied a lot of these priorities and how we looked at evaluating programs. In addition to looking at the type of assistance, was it direct assistance? Was it operational support? We also looked to see if there is a current system in place that would accommodate the proposal, the delivery of service. If the agency had history of utilizing City of Everett grant funds, if they did so expeditiously. Again, to get the dollars out into the community as soon as possible is another priority that we want to be mindful of. And then we wanted to look at potential overlap, so being mindful of any concentration. This is something that we want to just be mindful of to make sure that we are circulating our funds in the community, as well as looking at making sure that we don't pool resources for an agency that for where multiple agencies are getting funded for the same program, for the same funding source. And then we also looked at, of course, can agencies facilitate with a reduced amount? These criteria were also provided to the committee for their consideration when they looked at proposals. And so so that was what we considered when looking at the applications for the CARES funding, and those were the CARE guidelines. And so with your permission, Chair, I will move forward to the presentation of applications.
Please proceed.
So at this time, I'm sorry for the quick jarring visual, but you're going to see them a switch to showing our Excel sheet, and then I'm going to give it over, Chair, for you to be able to go through. So let me just pull that up real quick. And then, Chair, do you mind confirming when you see it on the screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, great. So in total, we received about $1.1 million and some change for total funds requested. The remaining, with our funds available, we had a total of about $434,121 that were available for allocation to public services. A administrative amount was taken off. This is provided as a eligible administrative cost under HUD, and staff in the city have quickly come to realize that we're going to need help with administering not only these public service contracts and funds, but also additional CARES funds, ones that were allocated prior. And so the administrative cost of approximately about $100,000 has been taken off. And so that leaves about $434,000, 121 available. You will see that the priorities are broken down. Each worksheet has a priority that's broken down just for food, for housing, or other applications that did not fit under these two priorities. As we go through and show that we have recommendations under the CAC recommendation column, these will feed back into the funding priority master sheet. So we will see where the what the totals are based on the breakdown of priority, as well as what's remaining and what's still left for us to be able to utilize. So for that, I give it over to the committee to discuss.
And I think it might behoove us to make sure that we are discussing specific portions of the sheet. So I think that we're going to start with all the food applicants and move on to the housing and then other. And I just ask that we do this in the interest of time and in the interest of making sure that we thoroughly review everything rather than possibly getting caught up in a discussion on just one or two items. So with that, let's start discussing the food portion, and I will start from from Kathy. Do you have anything?
No, nothing to add at this time.
Larissa?
No, nothing to add.
Susan?
No, I have nothing at this time.
And has Samantha joined us yet?
I will need, Becky, can you confirm that? Unfortunately, I have, with my share screen, I'm a little limited.
No, she has not.
Okay. Ben?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Mary?
Nothing. Thank you, Charles.
Has Dimba joined us yet?
No.
Would you be able to type in chat when anyone new joins?
Yes.
Thank you. Sue? Sue, are you there?
She's muted.
There. Okay. Am I unmuted? My
Yes.
question was, I noticed that staff had recommended dollar amounts for various agencies and then zero amounts for others. At some point, was staff going to go over why they chose some agencies to fund and didn't choose others, or?
Yes, we can go through that.
Yeah, so I noticed on food, you only recommended that we did it for 2 of the several that had requested funds.
3. There was 3 there. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. My screen. What is the third one? The writing's too little for me to. Is it?
Child Strive.
Okay, I've got that one, and I've got UT Savings, but I'm missing one.
It's the Northwest Seattle Gambian Association.
Okay, and how much were you recommending for them?
20,000.
20,000. Okay, somehow I missed that one. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you want us to do that now, or do you want to go back through the list?
Yeah, let me check with Vicky and Greg to confirm that they don't have any questions. So, Greg?
Not at this time.
Vicky?
Mine was just a little bit more information on the Everett Public Schools Foundation request for basic needs. And this might be explained when staff explains Sue's request, just finding out a little bit more of which ones were chosen.
Okay. So with that, if staff would like to go over kind of expanding further upon, at least in the food category, their recommendations.
Kembra, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So again, I also, before we also dive into this, I also want to thank all the applicants. I do want to also say that if anybody is not funded today, we have future opportunities for our grants for the 2021 program year. Our human needs grant cycle begins in January. Our federal and state cycles begin in July. And I would encourage, these are all absolutely phenomenal programs to read and to look at and to see what everyone was doing. And I would love to see these programs, continue to come to us in the future. So I just want to thank the applicants for their hard work and for working with me. I was able to talk with a lot of these agencies on how exactly they deliver their services, on their efforts that they're working with right now, and it was an honor to do so, and so I appreciate all the time that everybody spent with working with me on these applications. So, and moving forward on that, it was very hard to look at allocating these dollars. Staff worked off of the previous understanding that we've had with the Citizen Advisory Committee for our prior funding recommendations, where we are looking at providing closer to the full amount of asks, that rather than to try and give a little bit of funding to everyone, we want to make sure that we have these dollars are going for significant impact and addressing the needs that are out there. It does not mean that one program is undeserving. It just meant that we needed to be very smart about where the dollars went. And so for that reason, we first looked at agencies that were providing direct assistance. And then in looking at that, then we then looked at the other considerations I've talked about, how do they address, the desired demographics that we're looking at? How do they work with, allocating funds for the Northwest Seattle Gambian Association and for the UTSAV agencies. They both work, they are both agencies that have not applied with us before. However, they both provided direct assistance and work with the desired communities that we would like to see where these dollars go towards. We looked at, even though they were not specific to food, we did look at the other efforts for direct assistance that they had in addition to food. I do also want to say that the city of Everett has made an effort early on to make sure that we were helping to support food costs, not necessarily through CDBG dollars, but through unutilized human needs dollars that became available. And so we were able to support food efforts for food banks prior to this. And so in looking at this, we again looked at delivery of service as well as then the desired community as well as capacity. And so in looking at that, Northwest Gambian Association, UTSAV, while they are not previous applicants, they do work with a desired community that we have not had the opportunity to serve prior to. Child Strive works with, of course, a large, diverse group of agencies in the Casino Road area. And we really looked at, out of that proposal, significant proposal of $111,000. We looked at trying to prioritize the food support out of that more than anything else. And after looking at all those, then we ended up with those three agencies that were chosen. And so that was the starting point for our recommendations on that one. Becky, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I as Kembra said, we were looking for those that were going to provide more direct assistance, targeting the population groups that we wanted to target. A little bit with Everett Public Schools Foundation. We would like to work with them in the future because it's a challenge for groups that work with the school district in terms of documenting eligibility. I know that might not make sense, but we have to have our own, our grantee has to have their own documentation for that. And that's just something that we have run into in the past with organizations that work with the school district. And I think we just need to work with that foundation to figure out if we can come up with a system that will actually meet the HUD requirements. So we had done a little bit of talking with them on that. The Woodinville Rotary, we haven't ever worked with them. I'm not sure. We have Rotary clubs here, so it was interesting that we would get a out-of-town Rotary club wanting to serve Everett. And I think just Everett Recovery Cafe, it just didn't fall maybe high enough in terms of who they want to serve and the target populations that we are really trying to make an effort to get to.
I also want to add real quick that came up with a couple of the agencies, that multiple agencies, this is where we saw a concentration of our food agent, our agencies that were trying to provide food assistance were all going to some of the same sources. And so we also wanted to make sure that in our support of food efforts in the city of Everett, that if we provided food to an agency that some of these agencies were going towards, if we were providing support to some of those agencies through human needs dollars or through elsewhere, we wanted to look at helping to bolster agencies that weren't already tapping into those resources, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm being succinct or clear enough in that, but we looked at the partnerships and where people were working with agencies. And so with an agency such as, for example, Volunteers of America's Food Bank, it's a very strong agency and a very stable agency. And so, you know, a lot of agencies were looking to partner with that particular food bank. And if we were looking at ability to not concentrate our dollars to specific agencies, and we're trying to just be mindful of those overlaps. So a lot of the consideration for partnerships came in for this particular priority.
Question?
Yes, Sue.
Hang on. Am I unmute?
Yep.
Can you just briefly, because I'm having trouble with some of my screens, can you tell us just a bit more about Northwest Gambian? I don't have the backup on them handy. What clientele are they serving?
Becky, are you able to pull that up? So I don't.
Yeah, I'm doing that now. Yep. I should have had this up.
And then I see you recommended 20,000, but of their ask, it looks like only 4K was for food, but are we just going to lump all of it anyway, even though we have them in the food category? If we were to take your recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were actually, they could have fit into
both,
any of the categories, or yeah, okay. The food and the. So they do serve the Gambian community. So they have several community members that live here in the Everett area. They do use a lot of volunteers as well. And so they've asked for stuff to do the protective equipment, the PPEs. Then you see the food there, also doing some rental assistance and transport.
Right.
So if there's one or another part of that proposal that you didn't want to fund, that's something you could do. That if you said you wanted to fund the food and the rent, or that's something the committee could consider.
All right, thank you.
Shouldn't it be under housing if it were for the rent portion and instead of food category?
It could be under either category, but yeah.
Because most of it's rent for this.
Yeah.
Half of it is actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
In hindsight, that you're right. That probably could have gone under food housing.
Do we have any further questions regarding the food category? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Okay, so we're going to move on to the housing category. Would staff be willing to just go do a brief overview of their recommendations?
Yeah. So it's again looking at direct assistance, looking at partnerships and allocation of dollars, as well as looking at trying to provide significant portions to the asks instead of a little bit for all. For this one, it's worth noting that, of course, housing was a priority that was established for the 2020 consolidated plan priorities. It was established for the 2020 annual action plan back in our hearings back in November, or no, I'm sorry, back in, oh goodness, August of last year. And so it's understood that housing continues to be a priority, especially in the pandemic that we're in. When looking at the housing priorities, it became evident that, of course, we have a lot of housing requests that were being used for hotel vouchers and rental assistance. Those were both the main forms of direct assistance that were being given out by agencies. When talking with agencies about the voucher programs or about rental assistance, there are a few things to remember. That rental assistance can only be used for a period of 3 months. It's important to look at the ability for the organization to be able to help a large group of people because it is limited to 3 months. So of course, you can't serve only 5 families for 12 months. You have to serve 25 families for, like in 3-month periods, meaning that one family cannot receive rental assistance for more than a 3-month period. So we need to look at kind of also capacity in that view. And then when looking at hotel vouchers, those are really going to be used for prevention of homelessness. As I'm sure that the community is aware, we have an ability to support our shelters through our 2060 dollars, as well as our human needs dollars. So when the opportunity for the CDBG funds to be used for prevention of homeless, especially in response to the COVID-19, staff looked and strongly considered the rental assistance and the housing vouchers as strong points for that. To continue, of course, we did take into account that if we're looking at serving a large number of people, there has to be some type of administrative cost for that. And so, there are a lot of organizations that have a mix of rental assistance and staffing costs to consider. So when looking at not providing full amounts, could the organization still work with a reduced amount and still be able to carry the money forward? If the costs were just going to go to direct assistance and not staffing, that was another consideration. And the only organization that does not provide the direct assistance that we did suggest is Snohomish County Legal Services. And of course, that is to support their staffing, because the delivery of service for that organization is to provide free and reduced legal representation to individuals for housing justice issues. That can be evictions, that can be disputes between landlords and tenants, or anything else of the like. So that was the one that was an anomaly that did not provide housing or rental assistance, or housing, hotel vouchers or rental assistance. Becky, do you have anything to add?
No, the only thing I would add is, again, all of these applications were wonderful. The one thing about Interfaith is that they were kind of creating a new program, and so they couldn't accept, I believe their application said that if they didn't get the full amount, then they couldn't implement the program. Is that right, Kembra?
I'm unfortunately not able to pull up their information.
And so that's why we didn't recommend providing them anything, is because, again, they would have to hire a staff person to run this program with the money. And typically Cocoon House, the committees funded them often. This didn't necessarily fit in that direct housing assistance category. And the Hoff Foundation, that was, I don't know, it was just for a couple of homes, if I recall. So it was just serving a couple of people, or was it 6? So we were looking for more robust program that could provide more assistance for more households. And that was our approach.
All right. So I'm going to go through another roll call of everyone just to see what questions you have for just the staff recommendation or any of the applicant organizations in the housing category. So Vicky.
No questions at this time.
Greg.
Cocoon House. Those listed, the program service listing, cleaning supplies, staff, youth needs, and operations, those all are housing related. When I first saw cleaning supplies, I was wondering what that was referring to, and it's referring to the COVID disinfectant routines that the Cocoon House has to go through because they have to adhere to strict state guidelines. So I would like to see them with maybe half of what the ask is.
Would an appropriate time for stuff along those lines, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but I believe an appropriate time for that would be when we're going through the committee recommendation action?
Yes.
Yes.
So let's circle back around to that one, Greg,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
No.
Sue, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Mary.
Sorry, I was on a different screen. No, not right now. Thanks. Thought I did, but I don't.
Ben.
I have no questions, but I do want to say thanks for all the diligent prep work on making that really clear for us on this round. It's very helpful. No questions.
Samantha isn't here, right?
I did not see her come in.
All right. Susan.
No questions, thank you.
Larissa.
No questions.
Kathy.
Yeah, I do have a question. Given that organizations that serve undocumented families and individuals would have a higher need because undocumented individuals and families wouldn't qualify for state benefits, for example, or the stimulus payment, was any special consideration given to organizations that serve those populations?
Well, actually, HUD has issued a guidance on serving undocumented individuals. And so I don't believe that we didn't look specifically for undocumented. We looked for immigrant populations. There is a federal law that prohibits the city from giving any direct assistance to undocumented workers. And we are working through those guidelines to make sure that how and if that filters down to the agencies. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Are there any final questions on the housing portion? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Great. Let's move on to the other portion. Would staff be willing to just go over what their why they recommended that we fund none of these?
This was this is a hard one to have come to. I think that really when it came down to it, we just saw the high need with the food and housing priorities. Again, I would love to see a lot of these agencies apply with us again in the future. But after looking at our allocations for the other two priorities, we had already cut other people that were giving direct assistance, and so a lot of these were for priorities that didn't meet the ones established by the committee initially, and were to support a lot of hiring and maintaining of staffing. So it's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Sue?
One brief question. It looked like hand in hand was rental assistance of $50K. So can you say why they didn't meet the housing side of things?
No, they're under the housing sheet.
Oh, sorry. Wait, wrong one. Hang on. I apologize. The hand up was outreach and food supplies. So I guess that was the one I had the question on. Sorry. So they didn't meet the food criteria?
Becky, can you help me out in looking at the application again?
Yeah. So the hand up project, they are working directly with folks on the street, and they they're part of kind of the shelter system, or we need them to be part of the bigger shelter system. And so we didn't feel like that they, at this time, giving them a little bit of money would help with the system of sheltering and what's happening with all of those providers down there. Am I making sense?
Not entirely.
No. Let me pull up their application. Yeah.
Do they have a location that they work out of, or do they go to homeless camps?
No, they go out into the community.
Wouldn't that be germane during COVID?
It would, except there's a larger sheltering and encampment group and agencies that are trying to work together on this.
Yeah.
And there seems to be enough resources in that area to deal with that. So I think that was probably the primary reason, and knowing how involved that Julie, my boss, and I are in keeping in touch with those groups that are helping the homeless in this case. Again, we just felt focus on the other agencies that had put together a different proposal.
So what I'm hearing you say is there's a broader net, and this smaller grant, while it could address some needs, the bigger net is taking care of enough of the problem that this 7,000 wouldn't make a significant impact. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Or enough for this round?
That we think would, that would impact more folks.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That helps.
All right. Let me go through. Vicky, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Greg?
No.
Sue, do you have any additional questions?
No, thank you.
Mary?
No, it was answered. Thank you.
Ben?
No questions.
Susan?
No questions, thank you.
Larissa?
No questions.
Kathy?
No, thank you.
All right. So we are now in the part of the meeting where would it be appropriate to open the public hearing now?
Oh my goodness, let me see if I can look at my.
I think you're at the,
You're still at committee discussion and funding recommendation.
so
Okay.
you're at a point where you could formulate a recommendation.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just looking here on my agenda and we have the recommendation after the public hearing.
Oh, yes, we want to do the recommendation before the public hearing. The public hearing is to collect comments on the recommendations made by the Citizen Advisory Committee.
Okay.
But you won't take final action until the end of the agenda.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. That was mixing me up. All right. So for the funding recommendation, I think to be fair to all committee members, I'm going to go through again the roll call, or just the roll, and just ask everyone what they would like things to be moved around, or if they're fine with the staff recommendation. And let's see how long that takes.
See how long it takes.
All right. So Vicky.
Okay, I get to go first. I think I am good with the staff recommendation. When I was going through the grants, I had a lot of similar thoughts of who should get funding and who might not get funding through this, and they pretty well matched up with the staff recommendations.
Well, Vicky, you're making everyone else's lives easier. So, Greg.
Where's Meals on Wheels? Or they've changed their name. They're not on here.
They didn't apply.
They didn't apply. That's okay. I like this layout a lot. It's very, very comprehensive. It's easy to understand, and I have to say that it looks pretty good to me.
Okay. Sue.
I'm also good with the clarifications that you've given us, with the caveat that we have twice not funded interfaith. So when we have our regular funding, we want to make sure that they're getting fair representation. But in this round, I'm comfortable with the way you've laid it out.
Mary.
Yeah, I concur what Sue just said. That was my thing. So back up to the Northwest Seattle Gambian Association, funding them fully will, we don't have to split that off at all. The funding for, they've asked $4,000 for food and $4,000 for PPE and $2,000 for transport. So those, we don't have to split those off into other categories. It's just going to be assumed that they will use that money in each category, and rather than, putting $4,000 in this category right now and taking the remainder and spreading it over the other two categories. Was that just for ease of?
Yeah, like I said, in hindsight, we probably could have put that one under housing as well. And if you wanted to just fund a portion of one of those things, or just a portion, that's something you could do as well.
Well, the UTSAV is the same basic thing. I'm not trying to make it, I just want to be clear moving forward that that is what we did when we granted that under the food area, that it was all inclusive of their ask. Because
Right.
it's great that they're spread out like this through the 3 areas, but again, these looks like most of these were granted not just for food. I mean, Child's Drive, most of theirs fell into that category, but the other 2 truly have it spread out between housing and so 12,000. So let's just look at UTSAB. So we've got, they're asking 12K for food. We've given them 15. So do we have some acknowledgement that they're going to spend 12 for food?
Instead of dividing it up, you mean?
Right. Or is that our goal? Is that our goal to just give it to them, and where is the greatest need that they figure it out? Because it certainly isn't their whole ask. But
Kembra, you talked with them today.
Pardon?
Kembra has been talking with them. Can you provide some?
So in talking with them, I've asked them, prior questions were to ask them if they could utilize a reduced amount from their original ask. And I do want to say also that this organization is heavily volunteer run. And so to be able to have any kind of help for staff assistance, I think would help them greatly. But they also mentioned that they could use other funding that they've secured for staffing assistance. I think that where we start to look at what to be, when we have these multiple pot kind of asks where they're looking to cover a few things, I think that it's up to the discretion of the committee to be able to say, well, understanding if they're providing housing aid, we also have all these other agencies that maybe they could partner with for referrals for housing aid, knowing that we're looking at serving the target population still again. But we could work with them to be able to allocate it through a couple of means, and working with them on using anything less for than 12,000 for food. It was mentioned that what they would have to do is just serve less people, right? I mean, and that's what we've heard from some of our other agencies and other subrecipients, that if they're asking for direct assistance and we don't give them that full ask, and that means that their impact is lessened. I do want to also say that one of the things that the staff does when we execute contracts is that we ask for budgets to be submitted, and we asked for a budget to be submitted, of course, with all these applications. In the contract, if it's something where we want to see that this program, this agency was funded under this priority, and this priority at this current time is food, then we are asking that they execute their services for food, and the budget that they submit for their contract can reflect that. So, as Becky mentioned, we can look at funding parts of this, we can look at funding all of this, but when we did our staff recommendation, we were looking at funding mainly the food for $12,000, and then additional funds to be used for staff assistance if needed, or their housing aid. Are there any additional questions for that?
Yeah, so basically, I guess what I'm hearing you say is that we funded them fully at food, but they're not fully funded, therefore they can serve less people. Therefore, the food funding really isn't that much. Is that what you're saying? So if they're able to spread it across, they'll know exactly how many people they can serve based on the amount of money that they got. So we wouldn't expect them to fully fund their food at 12,000 if they're not serving that many clients. Am I clear with that? Is that what you're saying?
I think I'm a little confused on
okay.
that.
No, I think what I heard Kembra say was that if they funded 12,000, their full ask for food, then the remaining 3, they would be free to spread over the other services. But our request would be, since this was in the food category, that they apply it first to food and then to this other services. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
So,
But what I'm
So
saying,
we'll-
Sue, what I'm saying is that it was also mentioned that if people didn't get their full ask, that they would have to serve less people, so that their funding for food is assumed at a bar of so many people. But if they don't get the rest of the funding, that they can't serve as many people. So the food amount would invariably go down if less people are served. Is that more clear or not?
Well, I think what Kembra got clarification on today from the agency was that that they think they have another funding source for the staff assistance, and maybe the housing aid they wouldn't be able to do, but the food they could do the full. And if that's the way,
So they're feeding without
you wanna
housing.
grant
is
it
that
to
right?
them.
They're
Pardon?
feeding without housing.
Yes. Yes.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sue?
if that's the case, then why did we give them 15K? Why wouldn't we just give them 12 to fund the food part?
Because so we gave them additional 3,000 to help with their staffing needs.
Oh, okay, so we are chipping in on the staffing. Okay.
No, we would be chipping in on the staffing, but it wouldn't be the full amount to
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
they requested.
Okay.
Thank you. It's hard when you're remote or you can't see me or whatever to understand what I'm trying to get at, and I really appreciate staff as Ben said, working with all the numbers, working with all these agencies to try to come up with the best fit for the money that's available. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Ben, do you have anything?
No questions. Thank you.
This isn't, we're not in questions. We're now in, do you want to change any of the numbers?
I guess I was saying my questions for the recommendations were answered. So I have no additional recommendations. Sorry.
Susan.
I accept staff's recommendations. Thank you.
Larissa.
I accept the staff recommendations.
Kathy.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Mary said. I really appreciate all of the organization and planning and research that went into this, and I definitely agree with the staff recommendations.
And I agree with the staff recommendations. So it sounds like we have a pretty good consensus. So with the committee's consent, I'm going to go ahead and move us into the public hearing, since I believe that should be the next appropriate course of action.
Wait, so real quick, Charles, I want to make sure that I'm understanding that what we've talked about is just food, correct? Or are we talking about all categories for housing as well?
All categories, including housing, unless someone misunderstood that.
I misunderstood that.
Okay.
I did too.
Then I'll move us, if everyone was under the assumption we were just doing food, then I'll move us into housing. Vicky, do you have anything on housing?
Not at this time. I agree with staff recommendations.
Greg?
I think Cocoon House should be funded a little bit.
Does,
10,000.
we need to take that away from another source. So
Yes. I'm looking at YWCA. They fund 26 I guess home or rental assistance for 23 instances.
Can we see that screen, Kembra?
Housing.
Yeah, it should be up.
Click,
Is it not up, the housing page?
push the
No,
mouse.
still shows food.
No, still on food.
Okay. Well, I'm on it, so I'm hoping it'll come through. I'm hoping it should switch over soon. But I'm on that housing page.
We're seeing only food.
Okay, maybe I can stop my sharing and I'll restart it real quick. So bear with me, technical difficulties. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you. And now we're switching back to our Excel sheet. Can everybody see? Let me know when somebody sees housing.
Yep.
Yes, you're up.
Wonderful.
You're up. Okay, if we gave Cocoon House $10,000, we've got $60,000 from Housing Hope and $60,000 from YWCA. If we took 5 from each, I don't think that would impact them that much.
What about VOA?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. That wouldn't even. Yes.
Okay.
Them
Just
too.
so staff understands, we are now only taking away $10,000 from VOA. Is that correct?
That sounds like consensus.
Yes.
Is anyone opposed? All right. So
I guess I have a question.
Oh.
This is Larissa. If you want, you were focused on the cleaning supplies, and they've only cited 1.5 thousand for the cleaning supplies. So why are you like saying 10,000 then for them?
Well, the cleaning supplies are 1,500. Then staff is 15,000, and the staff is basically for housing, and the youth needs are for housing. That's what they do there, is they house youths.
Yeah, I know what they do there. I'm just, I guess I want to know how much is this directly related to COVID? The cleaning supplies you were talking about being related directly to COVID makes sense to me. But like, is this directly related to COVID, like the staffing and stuff like that?
Well, that's a hard question, because when we have like other asks for rental assistance and staffing for housing and justice, are those related to COVID? And yes, they are.
I would say they are. I mean, there's a lot of people out of work and everything like that.
Yeah.
And moves to evict people and stuff is higher right now. So I was just wondering why the 10,000, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we should also think about the population that Cocoon House serves and what that population is going through right now. That a lot of these kids did depend upon school for a safe place combined with a place to get warm meals. In addition to, there's a lot of kids are having to spend extended periods of time with their families, and that can result in increased youth homelessness, especially for more marginalized communities such as LGBT kids winding up getting kicked out of their parents' house and stuff along those lines. So I do think that there is an increased need there, but I also think there's an increased need just across the table in basically all of these organizations' service populations.
Yeah, and they all have their reasons for why they were affected by COVID specifically. So it was kind of a hard question, actually.
Can staff clarify why they initially didn't fund Cocoon?
Yes, that's a good question. So the reason why we did not initially fund Cocoon is because it is not they weren't providing the direct assistance that other agencies were. This wasn't a direct assistance for rental assistance or for the housing vouchers, which is what kind of led a lot of our discussion. But we also looked at a lot of this does support operations and a myriad of needs with staff and youth needs and cleaning supplies being, like the equipment that we need, or PPE equipment, or, disinfectants for COVID related. So we prioritize direct assistance instead. We do understand the role that Cocoon House has. And it was, again, a hard decision to not give them anything, but we were looking in the lens of direct assistance and type of assistance that was delivered. So
I just looked at their, this is Vicky Doorway. I just looked quickly at their application, but they do talk about an increased need for staff due to COVID, since the kids are at the facility more. They also talk about an increase in food costs that they've incurred due to COVID, and they had other reasons as well. So anyway, just sharing what I just briefly saw.
Also, Mary has her hand up, so I want to make sure to recognize her.
Thank you, Charles. So I'm looking at two direct assistance for hotel vouchers between the BOA and Compass Health, and I wondered about staff recommendation for Compass Health at 29,121. I just thought that was kind of a funny number. When they asked for 40,000 for hotel vouchers, that, hotel vouchers is about as direct assistance as you could get to keep people off the street right now. Yet we're choosing to grab 10,000 from BOA, which I totally agree. Cocoon House is, everything's changed because of COVID and the way they have to operate. So the operating costs are definitely going up. But is there some reason that that the 40,000 for hotel vouchers at Compass Health did not get the full amount, rather that funny number, 29,121?
We looked at how we had to split up, how people were kind of cut. Again, we weren't able to fully fund. The only one that I think even on this one that we fully funded was Snohomish County Legal Services, because of the uniqueness of their delivery of service. But that is, I know that the committee is familiar with this. This is the 29,121 is that funny number that we get whenever we have funds that we find that are a remainder. So we had cut Compass Health to a certain amount, and then found that we had a little bit of dollars remaining, and we felt that Compass Health is where that 9,121,000 should go. So that's why they have a odd little number.
May I ask a question that unrelated to all of this?
Yes, go ahead.
How do you raise your hand?
Go to your more actions bar, that little bar, and it gives a little hand raise.
I don't.
Or you do this.
I don't see it. That's the first place I looked.
Sometimes certain icons don't show up for certain people. There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
I could take that. Okay.
So
I'll just butt in.
So back to my question then, for the 40,000 ask that they, for direct assistance with hotel vouchers, so were they getting help from somewhere else? Did they fall in that category? DV services got their whole ask. Obviously, VOA did not get their whole ask. But is there some reason that the hotel vouchers, 10,000 less for their hotel vouchers?
Well, the YWCA was less than half of their ask.
Hotel, is that rental assistance isn't hotel?
That is rental. It's not hotel. No, you're correct.
Right. Because a lot of people are getting rental, they're having I want to say a holiday from rental things right now. So I'm not sure I know that's not the right word, but you get my drift when I say that. I don't know. I mean, hotel vouchers are just like gold, truly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me also just interject real quick that in talking with Compass Health, Mary, to answer one of your other questions, they do not have any other federal funding or anything else that's going in to support their hotel vouchers. So their ask for hotel vouchers is going to come out of our funds. Our funds are supporting that effort for them.
Right, and those are like basically our neighbors with maybe mental health issues right here in our own, in our neighborhoods, and the security that provides to have a warm place to stay, a secure place to stay, reduces public safety on a lot of levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really, I'm advocating for some way to bring that up to the level of their ask for their hotel vouchers.
Do we have any further? Vicky, would you like to share whatever you have your hand raised for?
Okay, I was just going to talk a little bit that people will need to pay their rent. So basically, just because there's a moratorium on rent and evictions, they are going to have to pay that money or come up with the money or come up with payment plans. But I do agree with Mary that, providing hotel vouchers is beneficial as well. So Mary, I don't know if you have a recommendation for what amount you would like to see Compass Health funded at, and if you have a suggestion as to where that money would come from.
Yeah, Sophie's choice right here. So I know that the YWCA gets a lot of funding from a lot of sources, and if Compass Health we're their source, I would anticipate maybe we could grab at least 5,000 from the YWCA, and I'm trying to see where else I can hate on.
Yeah, the total difference is 10,879.
Thank you. I knew it was 10,000 and change, as Kembra says. I had a chuckle over that the first time. I'm like, oh, I'd like that change.
It's an easy write-off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I don't know. What?
Using that logic, even though we cut VOA to 110, they also have a lot of people who contribute and their fundraising. So we could probably cut them an additional 5,879 and still have a significant impact.
I believe that's great. Thank you for helping me make that hard choice. But that would be my recommendation at this time.
So real quick, does everybody see the updates on the sheet?
I do.
I can't read numbers that small, so if you just summarize them, that would help.
So we should have, it looks like we're doing 40,000 for Compass Health, 55,000 for YW, 10,000 for domestic violence services, 10,000 for Cocoon House, 60,000 for Housing Hope, 40,000 for Hand in Hand, $104,121 and some change for VOA, and $26,775 for Snohomish County Legal Services.
Yeah. Can I say something? Didn't the eviction moratorium stop on the 4th of this month?
It got extended.
Yeah.
Did it get extended? Okay. Do you know for how long, by any chance?
August.
Oh, okay, good. Because the Snohomish County Legal Services is going to be darn busy on that. when that goes away, my goodness.
We already fully funded their ask.
Yes.
And I'm very pleased.
That's
I'm very
good.
pleased with that.
I'm surprised it's as low as it is, that their ask.
Yeah.
Well, a
True.
lot of it's pro bono too. I mean, this is
Yeah. Mhm. Okay.
All right. So, so far we've gotten Vicky, Greg, and Sue. Have you gone yet?
I'm okay with this revised version up until the point where we put it for a real vote, but I'm good with the new numbers.
And Mary, do you have anything?
no, thank you.
Ben?
These numbers look good. I just wanted to check with the city staff about the reasonability of allocating the grants. You had mentioned at a previous meeting that having fewer grants with more fully funding is better as far as even administrative costs. Is this still within the ballpark for your the work associated for you on your end?
I would say it is, yes. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions for me then. Thanks.
Susan?
I accept the revised numbers. Thank you.
Larissa?
I accept it.
Kathy?
So I accept the numbers, but I wanted to add two things. One, that COVID-19 has severely impacted fundraising activities. And so even though a lot of agencies would normally be fundraising right now, they're not able to do it in the same way or at the same capacity. So those monies aren't as available as they would be. And I just wondered, I feel like, and I appreciate what Cocoon House does. They're amazing. I just feel like we're constantly funding them. And I thought I had heard at an earlier meeting that we want to be mindful that we're not constantly propping up one agency over the others. But I think the numbers that we've come to are good.
All right. So with that, I'm going to move us on to the other portion of the funding recommendations. So with that, Vicky, do you want to start us off?
I know it's very difficult to not fund any of them, but I do also know that the priority was food and housing. I know some of these programs do help with foreclosure assistance or foreclosure prevention and, home ownership programs. So they could potentially kind of be tied to housing, but I think we're more going for, rental assistance, motels, that type of thing. So I guess I concur to not fund these other programs.
Greg?
I agree. It seems like they were mistaken in their applications almost, by the looks of it. Some of them, anyway. I agree with the funding.
Sue?
I agree, and I appreciate the committee recommending to the agencies where appropriate that they look to the next funding cycle of the regular CBDG and other funding that we have available, human needs. So I'm fine with, at this point, since you answered my question about that one group.
All right, Mary?
Yeah, I would agree to that, to make sure that these groups know that other funding down the road could be available for their needs. And I know it is that hard decision to decide who gets to live and who gets to die, basically. I know that's kind of a little histrionic, but it does feel like that for these agencies that put so much work into what they love. And I do appreciate the comment about the fundraising at this time. And that wasn't lost on me, especially as regards to the YWCA. So thank you for all your hard work.
Ben.
I agree with what Vicky and Greg said. I agree with this proposal.
Susan.
I agree with non-funding these agencies.
Larissa.
I agree.
Kathy.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. With that, is now the time to go into public hearing.
Yes. So I am going to stop. I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hello, everybody, again. And then, Chair, if you can just give me one quick second to check any comments that have come in, I will hand it back over to you for you to open the public hearing.
Sounds good. I have my gavel ready.
Okay, so I am ready when you are.
All right, so I am now going to move us into our public hearing. So ordered.
So staff just received, we didn't receive any comments necessarily on the allocation. It's just that we did have somebody submit that they heard someone say that renters are on a holiday because of the moratorium. And it was mentioned that in no way is the rent for those months going away. This was just a comment to bring up that those rents will still be due at the end of that moratorium. So
That's right. That's right.
All right, so.
Chair, it looks like you have Mary has raised her hand.
Yes, Mary.
Yeah, thank you, since that was my comment. I understand and do acknowledge that there is, that at the end of this moratorium on rent, that rents will still need to be paid back. I also believe that some of the landlords are also getting some assistance, and that there will also, that everybody knows that this is going to be taken care of over time, and that people are not going to be asked once this is over to come up with 4 months of back rent. I do want people to understand I've been in this situation myself, and I know how difficult it is. I'm not making light of it. I just want everybody to be able to have a house right now. And if we may have to, pay to play later, as it were, but, it's not lost on me what the looming cloud road is paying these rents, but there will be agencies to be helping with that as well. And that's where future funding will come from. So, as long as we all have a house right now, a place to stay right now, where we can kind of regroup while we're kind of going through this trauma in our, in our psyches, as collective psyches, I should say, that we can look down the road and give assistance then. But right now, let's be housed, let's be safe, and let's work on that in the future. It's not lost on me that it will be there. And I appreciate the question. Thank you.
All right, so do we not have any further public comment?
No, not this time. I do want to say that, again, reiterate that the public comment period, we will open a public comment period from the 11th until the 17th for anybody that would like to respond on these funding recommendations. So if you were not able to get in your public comment during the public hearing, there is a 7-day comment period that follows this meeting. So.
All right, so With the consent of the body, I'm going to now close public hearing. Hearing no objection, I'm going to close the public hearing. So ordered. Now, do we have any committee response to these virtual participant comments? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Great. So, committee recommendation action. I'm going to need someone to make a motion to recommend to move forward to the City Council on this set of recommendations. Would anyone like to make that motion? Sue?
I move that the committee adapt the proposal as set forth on the spreadsheet with the changes duly noted that we previously discussed.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Do I hear any amendments? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Great. Do I hear any discussion on the motion at hand? Going once, going twice, going thrice. All right, hearing no discussion, I will move us on to a roll call vote. Charles Atkins, vote aye. Vicky?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Sue?
Yes.
Mary?
Aye.
Ben?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Larissa?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
All right, did I miss anybody? All right, it sounds like I didn't miss anyone. Well, with that, I believe we have moved on to, I don't believe we have any other action we have to take today.
Nope, you guys did it all in one meeting.
Yes. Looks like I can go to that graduation.
You still have to accept that, Charles.
We still have to accept it?
Well, everybody.
Yeah, so, with your vote, you have recommended to the City Council the previously agreed upon slate of recommendations for CARES funding. So congrats, everybody. We did it in record time. Kembra, would you like to announce the comment period?
Oh, yes. So again, this is everything I've been saying already, that we will have a comment period following this, 11th through the 17th. Those comments are under HUD's allocation for us to be able to have a very fast, kind of truncated public comment period. This was part of the waiver that we submitted with the CARES funding. And so if anybody is interested in submitting public comments on these funding recommendations, again, please email me at klandry@everettwa.gov. And we have a hand raised.
All right, let me see whose hand is raised. Vicky.
So just to clarify, so will the spreadsheet proposed items be available to the public through the City of Everett website? That's yes. What will happen next, is it'll be posted to the website and announced that there's a public comment period?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
And just to let you know, the City Council will be briefed next Wednesday and then take final action on your recommendation the following Wednesday, the 24th.
All right. So do we have, Vicky, do you have your hand up again?
No, it looks like Mary does.
Okay, Mary?
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to reiterate that this shortened timeline to get this funding out for these agencies, it is my hope that this will give a boost to morale around our area and help us as we navigate the coming months. It's very important, and the work that the staff did, I cannot thank you enough for all your hard work and reaching out to these agencies personally. And I just can't say enough about that. I really appreciate it. You make our jobs so easy. So thank you.
You can send an email to the mayor. That's what I did.
Oh.
And CC Julie.
All right. So with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I
I
move
have
we
my hand
adjourn.
up again, sorry.
Oh, you're, please go ahead.
Thanks. This is now that we're finished with all the business. I just wanted to make a statement and to say that when we look at the budget for the city and we look at reallocating some of the funds that have gone into policing, that some of these agencies will have more access to more funds so that we can ensure proper safety with better schools, better help with the agencies that are on the ground doing this work, that we can change the way that we view public safety from a dictatorial stance to a bottom-up stance to all the citizens. And I'm sorry if I'm out of line, but I needed to say it. Thank you.
I think I'd like to say something, if I may.
Go ahead.
Everybody's talking about problems with getting behind in their rent, and the people that are behind in their rent, in my opinion, will not catch up. I can't see people that are 2 or 3 months behind in their rent will ever catch up magically. And I was thinking, why is it that the mortgage holders to these properties, why haven't they stepped up and extended the borrowers' 30-year loans a couple of months? In other words, let them skip payments and just extend the period of time that the loan would be paid. And nobody ever talks about that. But if that were to happen, that would relieve the landlords, which in turn would relieve the renters. And you never hear about it, though, as far as I know. I just thought I'd say that.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn right now.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
All right. The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, all opposed? Great, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.